everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That, as always, is the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. He goes by the name Nick Wright. And I will start off by saying Nick and I spent a good portion of yesterday after the show with a wonderful tutorial on point spreads and everything, because sometimes I don't really get the whole gambling aspect and points and all of it. That being said, I went into last night's game super excited because the Patriots were favored by 11 points.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
No problem. Jenna and I, she didn't know. Nick, we placed a little wager on Miami. So Jenna and I are winners.
Okay, good. Well, you know what? I'm glad you guys won. I'm glad you guys won some money last night.
Why?
Because I truly anticipate I will be the winner of today's television show. So I'm glad everyone can come away winners today.
No,
guys.
America's going to be the winners.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
There you go.
See, there we go. Hey, see, there we go.
Jenna, see how you tried to get selfish? I had to bring it back in.
Speaking of America, let's turn it over to you now.
Is
it at all possible that 40 is the new 40? Tom Brady struggled last night. He threw for just 233 yards and 2 interceptions in a 27-20 loss to Miami. The big stick that stuck out after this one, Pat's failing to convert a third down the entire game. New England now falls to 10-3. They're now in second place in the AFC. Here is Tom Brady after a disappointing loss.
I don't think there's any magic, potion or anything to take to come down and win. We just didn't play good and got behind and tried to battle back and just couldn't do it. So it's just a bad night. I wish we played better, but we didn't, and we got to move on and try to play a lot better next week.
So that's what we'll talk about today. Was it a bad night or the start of something else to come? But, CC, let me start with this. What went wrong for New England last night?
It was very odd because they were a different team. Now, the thing we have to remember or try to look back on is New England has struggled in Miami for a long time. For what reason? I don't know. It's not as if, they go down there 2 nights before Belichick takes everyone to South Beach. They go to the Versace Mansion. Yeah, go to my man Cafe Monterano there in Fort Lauderdale. No, but the Dolphins, and the thing that was so intriguing to me was I wonder why more teams in the AFC East don't give New England trouble in their own building like Miami does over the last 15 years. So Brady has struggled there. As I would say, besides Denver, this has been his toughest place to play. And the results, they speak for themselves. They couldn't get into a rhythm. And there's one thing that I've been watching the last couple of weeks. In the last couple of weeks, Brady's missed some time practicing. Now, last night he had another one of his receivers, Hogan, who was activated after missing several games. So I didn't see the in-sync passing game that I saw earlier in the year. In the back of my mind, Brady's missed more practice time in the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's been taking a day. We call that a senior day. All right, the older guys on the team, typically the coaching staff, will pick a Wednesday, week 14, 15, 16, to give that guy an extra day to recover. So I'm starting to see that. When they can't pick up third downs, this football team, they can't be great because that's what they've prided themselves on year after year after year. Getting off the field on third down, which they couldn't do with Cutler, and converting third downs on offense, no matter how they do it. If that being in Brady's first part of his career, that means running the ball, however they might be able to convert, or now throwing the ball all over the place. So those are things that really concern me. And this could be a trend. Now they're facing the best team in the AFC in Pittsburgh, and this is how things happen in the league. All of a sudden, you're sailing along nice and smooth, and you get an uppercut. Then the next thing you know, you get an injury. Then the next thing you know, you get 2 tough games opposition. Now you got to go to Pittsburgh, and people haven't looked at New England, but they have a lot of injuries. Offensively, not really talented. Defensively, not a whole bunch of team speed. And you could see that in last night's game. And I think it could be a trend if teams down the stretch are able to duplicate what Miami did last night.
So you brought up a lot of really good points there. And I want to talk about Brady, but I don't want to talk about Brady yet. You mentioned Miami. Now, Brady's now 7-9 in that stadium. That doesn't happen. Like, there's 4 stadiums in football where Brady has a losing record. And, 2 of them are in the NFC where he's only played there 4 times ever. So it is a yearly worry spot for them. So there's that. You mentioned you're sailing along. You get an injury. You get some bad luck. You get a suspension. of a player that you could use in this game. But what was so jarring to me yesterday, watching this game, is it was so unpatriot-like from a game plan perspective. I know they have the greatest quarterback ever. I know they have a guy who might win league MVP this year. But for the Pats to abandon the run the way they did, they weren't down 24 points. I understand they were down 2 scores for a bulk of the game, but they were also down 3-0, then 6-0. Like this was a close game within 2 scores the entire time. This is the 4th fewest rushing yards they've ever had under Bill Belichick. And they only it's not like they rushed the ball 21 times for 25 yards.
Right.
They only tried 10 times. Now, part of that, bless you, part of that I'd imagine was the injuries on the offensive line, combined with Gronk, who everyone knows him as this great pass catcher. He's not there as a great blocker. And so
Gronk is probably 1 or 2 best tight ends on the end of the line of scrimmage blocking.
Right.
I mean, so he enhances their running game. And when he's not there, as you can see last night, they decided, which they do quite often, to abandon the running game.
So I mean, the good news is that the main reason that you're thinking maybe they abandoned their game plan was not due to an injury. It was due to a guy they're going to get back next week.
I don't know if it was the main reason. I think it was a contributing factor. But
also it's who they're going against. In Ndamukong Suh, you can say a lot of things, but you cannot make a living running the ball against him. And the rest of that front 4, all right? I mean, they got some very good athletes. So the best thing to do, and I'm not going to criticize the game plan, so I'm not going to say I disagree with you, but I see this with New England a lot. You come to a game and you're like, oh, man, they're getting ready to have a nice balance here because the other team, man, they come out and run the ball 50 times. Next game, they come out and throw the ball 50 times. So New England does this more, so I'm more apt to accept it compared to it being they didn't have a game plan, because I know they had a game plan. Right. It's just that it didn't work. And against Ndamukong Suh, most teams are going to decide to throw the ball more quick compared to trying to run the ball against him.
This is a team, Nick, that it prides itself on next man up, that a guy goes down, next guy up. And for the first time last night, it just felt like they were not able to compensate for the guys that have been lost and taken out of their lineup for whatever reason.
Because the way they've compensated is by having the greatest quarterback ever playing as well as he's ever played.
And he's so accurate. And he wasn't that way last night.
That wasn't the case last night.
No.
And I just want to put this little note out there for people. I want to use very recent NFL history of another guy that is at least in the argument for Mount Rushmore quarterbacks, Peyton Manning. Mm-hmm. In 2013, Peyton Manning was as good as he's ever been. 55 touchdowns, 10 picks, the greatest offense we'd ever seen up to that point. In 2014, Peyton Manning was almost that good the first 11 games. And then the last 5 games, you saw the cracks in the armor. 5 touchdowns, 6 picks, a 79 rating, a terrible playoff game. And in 2015, he was finished. Done. Benched, injured, awful. In 2016, Tom Brady was as good as we've ever seen him. This year, through 10 games, was almost as good as last year. Last week, we saw a little creak. Yesterday, last night, was as poorly as we've seen him play in a decade. When it happens, sometimes it happens like that, and sometimes it happens during the season.
Nick makes 2 very good points as far as retirement and when an elite player, when they know. Typically, they don't know until after. It does happen very, very fast. Both Tom's interceptions last night were alarming to me because he wasn't rushed. He had plenty of time to throw. And of all things, he underthrew 2 deep balls that he's not rushed here. There's no one at his feet. He underthrows that. That's a post corner route. All you got to do is throw it over the corner. Now he has a post route he's throwing. This ball is underthrown. Brandon Cook's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. So those things with supporting what Nick is saying, but it's like running the 400 meters when you're trying to close out a great career. They say it fictitiously that the gorilla is waiting around that pole vault pit around the 300-yard mark. and that jumps on your back, and you have to try to run and keep your form to get to the finish line. And it's the same way in pro sports. Like, you don't know when it's going to happen, and I'm not going to say that last night will lead to Tom Brady like Peyton Manning, but there will be a day.
Sure.
So there will be a game in a series of games like this that lead to Brady finally saying, you know something? It's time for me to move on.
100% agree. But if you'll allow me to just play devil's advocate for a second, we all sat here the first 2 weeks of the season. We noticed kinks in the armor of Mr. Tom Brady, and we all said he's starting to look his age. He's starting to play his age. Could this be the end? And he turned around, rattled off 8 straight games where he could have been in contention for MVP.
Well, he is the MVP of the league.
Right now,
he will be the MVP.
So it's possible this could be one game and we're all made fun of next week when he comes back and bounces back. It is possible, but I do see your point.
Jenna, I think what you're saying, it's not just that it's possible. I think it is the conventional wisdom.
Yes.
This was just a bad game.
Right.
And so I get that entirely. I understand I am going further than out on a limb here. But if you remember last season, CC, you mentioned the 400 meters. Last season, Tom Brady only had to run 300 of them. That gorilla didn't have time to jump on his back because he had a 4-game suspension. By the way, game 13, first playoff game, he was bad. Game 15 for 2.5 quarters, he was bad. My concern with Brady from the beginning of this year was in December, when the hits pile up, when you start to really feel 40. And yesterday, there was a moment early in the game yesterday where he didn't even get hit.
No.
But he did the Peyton. I see it coming. I'm out of here.
Yes.
Like, no.
In the first quarter.
I want nothing to do with this. And I mentioned it on Twitter, and people were like, that's the smart play. I'm not denying it's the smart play. But it reminded me of what I saw from an aging all-time great of, my body is not into these hits. And as far as the importance of the game, CC, if the Steelers beat them, they can't get the 1. They are mathematically eliminated from getting the 1. And if the Steelers beat them, the Jags will be positioned for the 2. Like, that's what you're saying, to bring full circle to what you're saying. How quickly things can change in 6 weeks.
And those 5 Super Bowl wins, they've always been the 1 seed or had home field.
They had a bye every single time.
Eagles news now, and head coach Doug Peterson confirmed what we all feared. Carson Wentz is indeed out for the season with a torn ACL. As a result, the Eagles, once the odds-on favorite to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, have now dropped to 12-1 odds to win the Super Bowl behind the Patriots, the Steelers, the Vikings, and the Saints. Here's Eagles head coach Doug Peterson.
The reason we went out and got Nick Foles is for reasons like this and for situations like this. And I'm excited for Nick, obviously. I hate it for Carson Wentz. I hate it for the career, or the season, I guess, that he's been having. But at the same time, it's been the next man up mentality, and that's how we approach it this week.
You know, Nick, some would say that Nick Foles is probably one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league right now. So if this is going to happen, if there's a situation, you know, this is the one for Nick Foles to jump in. But what do the Eagles have to do to really overcome the loss of Wentz here?
To be able to still make or win the Super Bowl, there's nothing they can do.
Well, good Lord. Well, let's just have a funeral for the people.
Well, no. Here's the thing. I try to look at things sometimes to a fault from a logical perspective. Sorry that I missed your funeral music.
No, they asked me in my head, and of course.
So here's the thing. If you believe that Carson Wentz was one of the leading MVP candidates, and you also believe that the Eagles still can be a Super Bowl contending team, then I feel like you have to have believed that with Wentz, they were just going to run roughshod over everybody. If without an MVP, they can still go to the Super Bowl. Then if they had the MVP, then they're the 07 Pats as far as favorites going into the playoffs. They're just clearly better than everybody. I didn't think they were dominant favorites going into it. I thought it was a team that was a good team with some flaws that their amazing quarterback was covering up. And even if you replace him, forget one of the best backups, replace him with Andy Dalton, replace him with an average NFL starter. To me, that's no longer a Super Bowl team in Philadelphia.
Well, this is the problem I think you have with your theory, is that we've already played 13 games. It's not as if we have to play the whole season. It's not like Teddy Bridgewater last season where they had to trade for Sam Bradford. They got 11 wins, bro, in the back pocket. They got the best record in pro football. They only need 2 more wins to be the 1 or the 2 seed. So my optimism is based on they have to be the 1 or 2 seed. And it just happens to be a very, very odd year that potentially the number 1 or 2 seed, they're playing with the backup quarterback in Case Keenum. And if the Vikings, because I believe that the Vikings are the only team in the NFC that can be the 1 or the 2 besides the Eagles. So if that is the case, do I believe that Nick Foles can beat the Vikings, the Saints, the Panthers, the Rams in Philadelphia? I believe this. And the reason why is because I've seen him play enough football. Now, there's people out there that doubt Nick Foles, but those are the people that must have watched all the video when he played with Jeff Fisher as a quarterback. Now, the only quarterback that's been good with Jeff Fisher is, God rest his soul, Steve McNair. The rest of the quarterbacks, just look at them. Look at last year's top pick, Jared Goff, under Jeff Fisher. We had already put the bust label on him. I mean, the coach, McVay, saved his career.
Right.
That was Jeff Fisher. Look at all the other quarterbacks under Jeff Fisher. Look at the Vikings backup, Case Keenum. The reason why, Jenna, why we were doubting him, you were like, I like Case Keenum. Put Case Keenum, make him a starter. Why they got him on a short?
I preached it, Nick. Did you remember when I preached it?
Why they got him on a short leash? Because we got all that video when he was the coach, when his coach was Jeff Fisher.
Right.
So now Nick Foles, people want to forget how successful he was, in Philadelphia.
Right.
Chip Kelly, yep. Under Chip Kelly's system, which Doug Peterson adopted a lot of Chip Kelly's system and kept it into place. So given that this is a very odd year, given that I don't think Dallas and Dak, I don't think Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, no, those teams aren't going to be there. This is the year that you can have a backup, and I believe that the Eagles would be able to pull that off.
If you're saying that this was only a Super Bowl caliber team because of the MVP, Carson Wentz, and then you take Carson Wentz out of it, I'm assuming, logically, you don't think this team can really do anything without Carson Wentz. That Carson Wentz was the crux of it. He was the north, west, east, and south of this team. And I just think they have more moving parts, better personnel than just
listen. They're not the
with
Packers.
Carson Wentz.
They do.
They're not the Packers, no doubt. They're not a team that
they
is
have a better roster. Forget let's remove the quarterback. You're right, Jenna.
Yeah.
Let's remove the quarterback. And let's just talk about the other 52 people on the roster. Their roster matches up with anyone else in the NFC, and I'm willing to do a position by position.
Right. Take
charts.
Nick Foles out of it, and then let's match up some teams.
Okay, so let's do that. I'm fine with that because in their defense as a whole, I think in the NFC, I think the Vikings have a better defense. I think the Panthers have a better defense. I think they are about a push with the Saints, and I think the Seahawks. Probably not the Seahawks anymore, if I'm being fair. The Seahawks, obviously, prior, not anymore. And I think they're about a push with the Rams. Okay. So, on defense, there's 2 teams in Vikings and Panthers, I think, have better defenses, and 2 teams that are about on par with them. And this is something we've seen. Now, you go to their offense.
Let's go to their offense.
I like their running backs more than any team in the NFC except for the Rams and the Saints. I like the running backs more than the other teams except for the Rams and the Saints.
That's fair.
Their wide receivers, I said this when we were walking out of the studio yesterday. The Eagles are in a weird place with the wide receivers. They have 3 number 2 wide receivers, which means their number 3 is better than most, their number 2 is as good as most, and their number 1 is worse than, right? Like, Aguilar's a 2 to me, Torrey Smith's a 2.
Yeah, but look at the Rams, Saints, and the Vikings. They ain't got no number 1 that you're terrified of. I mean, they might have better as a group, the Vikings.
I like Adam Thielen.
Yeah, well, right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last 15 minutes.
Okay. and so Jenna, but then with those same teams, but then we do. So if we're acting like they're about even, when we go through it, guess what? I certainly like the Saints quarterback more now. I like the Rams quarterback more now.
Yeah.
I like this.
They're going to have to be playing in Philadelphia, though. And they only got to do it for 2 games. If we were in week number 3, I would agree with you.
I agree with you where this is happening, that they do have the wins behind them, that they have the success of the last 8-9 games and wins behind them as well.
And you only got to do it for a month. If you do it for a little more than a month, you're in the Super Bowl.
Back back here on First Things First. Greg Jennings is with us now. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning.
Good day to be a preacher's son. How are you, Greg? How are you?
Okay,
Good to see you, brother.
That's where he went. Everything good?
Everything is great.
All right, well, things are shaking up now in the AFC. Let's talk about it. These Steelers and their all-world wide receiver, I know, Antonio Brown, leading the NFL, Greg, with 1,509 yards. That's more than anybody had all of last season, and he still has 3 games to go. He also happens to lead the league with 99 catches, has scored 9 touchdowns, and helped Juju Smith-Schuster find his bicycle. Greg, no wide receiver has won league MVP, but can you make a case for AB this year? Could you see how people would want to or could?
Without a question, you can definitely make a case. Personally, and I'm going to get this out the way first.
Okay.
It's one of the most difficult positions to acquire this award because you're so dependent on great offensive line play, your quarterback play, your other receivers around you. It's so dependent. Having said that, nope, I'm going to say something else. Then when you watch the greatness of guys like a guy to my right, CeCe, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, the year he had in Detroit, and they haven't won it, it's hard to say, oh, yeah, AB is going to win this award. But he is definitely making a strong case. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and why they're successful, it is because of his play, not only throughout the game, late in the game in clutch situations. He gets it done. What I love about Antonio Brown is he is a small guy that plays so big that does everything right. Route running, separation, catches the ball in his hands, in traffic. Well, he's not a big hand catcher all the time, but in traffic, he makes the big plays, and he does things on the field that a lot of guys want to do that he does effortlessly. And when I look at Antonio Brown, he is definitely changing the game for the Pittsburgh Steelers in their opportunity to be successful this year. So, yes, absolutely.
But, CeCe, let me ask you this. What makes a guy like Antonio Brown different from DeAndre Hopkins or a Julio Jones or Odell Beckham Jr.? How does he – explain to people how he stands out that much more from those other guys.
Well, DeAndre Hopkins is out of that class with OBJ, Julio.
Okay.
And AB. And it's really hard to make the comparison because he's so small. Now, being small, Greg said, but he plays big. He gets double teamed. He can play into the boundary. He can play to the field where they typically have the fast guys, the smaller guys. They can run bubble screens to him. You can run reverses to him. He returns punts. So his ability to affect the game in so many ways, you have to double team him, just like Julio Jones. You cannot play man-to-man. So it takes one guy off the defense. So he tilts the field in the offensive favor. The reason why I don't believe is because I've seen other receivers that had better years. Calvin Johnson had a better year. Randy Moss had a better year. Jerry Rice in 12 games. Like, stop. Like, just
20 to 19 touchdowns.
Yeah, just stop. Like, let's not even try.
Is it the touchdowns?
Hold on. Here's why I don't like that argument. Because
probably because it's right, but go ahead.
Hold on. Just because we weren't fair to Randy, that 07 year with the Pats, Jerry a couple times, certainly the 12-game season, doesn't mean we can't start being fair now. Like the Calvin year, I'm not going to
agree.
Calvin, they were 4-12 that year. So like nobody on a 4-12 team is winning league MVP. No quarterback is, no matter what you do. I understand he set the league record for receiving yards. They were 4-12 that year. But I don't like that NFL MVP is simply a synonym for best quarterback of the year. The way to win it, if you're not a quarterback, is to have 2,000 yards as a running back, set the touchdowns record as a running back, or be named Lawrence Taylor. That's it. I guess Mark Mosley as well, a kicker who won it once absurdly. Like, it should not just be quarterback of the year. And if there's ever a year to buck the trend, I understand that there are receivers in the past as, if not more, deserving. I get that. But we can't affect votes in the past. We can affect this vote right now. And with Carson Wentz being injured, we'll see how Brady responds to this past week. Russell Wilson coming off his worst game of the year.
Yeah.
If they get the 1 seed, CC.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But the reason why you don't make a wide receiver, all right, the MVP, is because you can do this without him. Calvin Johnson did the same thing or even better. His team was 4-12. All right? Wide receivers is a position that is contingent upon other things: running game, offensive line, the quarterback play, the other wide receivers. It's contingent on so many things. So it's not the most valuable. Like New England last year, without their best receiver, Gronkowski, they won the Super Bowl. People say, well, he's a tight end. He is the #1 wide receiver on the team. You can play great football without a wide receiver having dominant.
Well, with that argument, what other position besides quarterback would you say would be deserving of what other position could be deserving?
Any defensive player that's going to have an amazing year, all right? You can't say position defensively. You can say anyone. That's either interceptions or sacks or tackles. You break the NFL record in tackles. Offensively, it is an offensive award that's made for the quarterback. So the only one going to win, either the quarterbacks or maybe a running back. That's it. But I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you to a degree. And when it comes to receivers and they're not needed, and anyone can really do this. But with this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and we talk about MVP, most valuable player, if you take Antonio Brown away, they are nowhere near the same team. Offense, you look at last
but if you
week.
take Ben away,
you're right.
If you take Le'Veon Bell away,
you're absolutely correct. I believe that they're a team that's built of these 3 core guys, and if you take any one of them away, they're not the same team. But with how consistent Antonio Brown has been, and he has done this year after year after year. I've played receiver, you've played receiver at high levels, Hall of Fame level, Super Bowl level. Antonio Brown has a case to where we can nod our head and say, yeah, Jerry Rice did some spectacular things. Randy Moss did. All these other guys did. But what he's doing is special. And to your point, we can change the slate a little bit.
Besides, I know the wide receiver is dependent on a lot of things. If I get targeted 160 times,
no doubt about that.
You better have more than 9 touchdowns. Now, that's a standard that me and other wide receivers, if you target us that many times, we're going to score more than 9 touchdowns.
But so this year, I feel you. This year, the 9 touchdowns.
Well, what year are we voting on? 1963?
No.
Well, he's not done.
He's not done. And this year, if the touchdowns are low, but if he becomes the first receiver ever with 2,000 yards receiving, and they have the 1 seed, I think the case may be.
It's going to be based on the targets, though. That's a durability thing. In targets, that's what that is.
So can we just show the audience, we're having a bigger picture Antonio Brown discussion, what he's done since he's become really Antonio Brown 2013, his NFL ranks and all these things. Now, CC, to be fair, he's also first in targets. That's not on there, but I have it right here. He is also first in targets. You and I have talked to this off the air, Cris, and I want both your guys' opinions, the guys that play the position at a super high level, because he's just been better than everybody by a wide margin. I've never seen, you guys have been watching the game longer than me, I've never seen a guy do it at his height, ever. I know I get a hard time from Coach Mangini and stuff for saying this guy's the best ever, this guy's the best. I don't know what the comparison is for a guy even close to his level at 5'9.5", 5'10". Can I say Antonio Brown the best receiver under 6 feet that I've ever seen?
Well, definitely he's the best one that you've ever seen. But it's hard to go, and just like in any other sport, it's hard to go from era to era. And you're not going to be able to get a receiver, say a Henry Ellard, say a Fred Biletnikoff, say a Steve Largent, someone who had those type of targets. He's a dynamic player. He's one of the most dynamic, and he's definitely one of the best players ever in NFL history under 6 foot. But I'm not going to say, I can't say that right now. All right? And the only thing that I would say in those 5 seasons, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, he only got 52 touchdowns and number 1 targets.
CC is a touchdown snob, man.
Is there a more significant play in the NFL than scoring a touchdown?
No, there is not.
Nick, I don't do the numbers, all right? Is there a more significant play than putting the ball in the end zone?
CC, at 1,600 targets, where would you like his touchdowns to be?
1,600 targets. He should have at least 14 to 15 touchdowns and should be getting close to 20 as we get.
And he's at 9 right now?
He's at 9 touchdowns, 100.
I can agree with that. What I won't agree with
Jenna,
is
one season I caught 11 touchdowns on 41 catches.
Right, and then I think they gave you a nickname because of that one.
I'm one of this. I'm going to appreciate him in this moment, in this era, and right now he is the best. I'm not going to put a height stipulation on it. He is the best receiver in the game. He is the best receiver that if we want to put a height stipulation on it, that I've seen under 6 foot ever play the game. Bottom line, what he's able to do, touchdowns or no touchdowns, he makes it happen.
It has been quite a recent stretch for the Ball family. All right. The story was supposed to be 3 brothers all attending UCLA, all with an eye on the NBA. That story took a left turn because this new story has LaMelo and LiAngelo playing for a team in Lithuania. They aren't even playing for the good team in Lithuania. They're essentially playing in the Lithuanian minor leagues. Also, the coach doesn't speak English and the club doesn't practice because there's not enough money. What? CC, please enlighten me. Can any good come of this for LiAngelo and LaMelo?
Well, if you're a soccer player, you can go abroad. And that's probably the best training that you can get in the world. I'll give it to soccer. But tennis, golf, basketball, football, baseball, all those athletes from all around the world, you know where they go to train?
South Florida.
Right here.
Yeah.
I mean, they're here in the United States in some form or fashion to either play at our colleges, because our colleges and high schools have developed players for the last 60 to 80 years on a successful basis.
Right.
All right? There's a system. High school, college, and the universities. For these other sports, they don't. There's academies they go to. Chris Everett has academy, golf academies. You're going to Lithuania to play basketball? You know where all the good Lithuanian players are, Jenna? They're in the United States playing basketball. Like, this is not a place that I would trade in my childhood to go play there. And these are just kids. Like, kids cannot play against grown men. There's always this argument, oh, Jadeveon Clowney, he could have been the first guy to come from high school to the pros. He didn't even do good coming from college to the pros. Like, you don't want kids playing against grown men. I mean, this is an awful league. It's a very, very small place. From a culture standpoint, what do they learn? They live with their dad. They don't have any practice, so they work out with their dad all the time. The
dad's not even going to live there full time.
Oh, really? So he's going to sentence them there, and that he's not even going to go there with them.
Why? Why did he pick that team? Is that the only team that wanted him?
Well, so listen, you had to find a league where they'd let them play together, and that they'd take on a 16-year-old child. And so Fran Fraschilla, who knows a lot more about this than me.
Yeah, give us a little context. I don't think a lot of people fully understand what it means to play overseas.
So people say, oh, go play in Europe. Yeah. But there's over a dozen leagues in Europe. Fran Fraschilla ranked the top 12 leagues that aren't the NBA. Mm-hmm. Lithuania's LKL came in number 11th. Right behind Australia's National Basketball League and right in front of the Chinese Basketball Association.
Well, you got to move to 12 because they couldn't go to China.
Well, oh, correct. It's a good point.
He's banned from China.
But also keep in mind, that's the LKL.
They're not even
playing
for that
in the second division, most likely, the BBL, where players make approximately $500 a month, and they'll be living in a town with approximately 10,000 people. You know what this sounds great for? A reality television show. The Ball Brothers Abroad. And that's what, listen, it's a weird thing, because I'm a parent, and I have a 19-year-old, 12-year-old. 12-year-old doesn't really get to make any of her own decisions. Like, we let her think she does, but the 19-year-old gets to make some of his own decisions, but as long as he's living on my payroll, like, I have veto power. So 16's kind of in between. So I do understand that sometimes a parent needs to say, you don't want to do this. It's not your choice. You need to do this. But if you are going to do that, you better be right. You better have good rationale. You better have pure motives. And I know people get mad, oh, don't try to raise someone else's kids. I get that. I understand that. But I am watching this from afar, and it was so, the juxtaposition of this, good job to our producers in the back. I think this is what Deontay does, putting these things next to each other. Talking about the Ohio State thing, your experience there, and now the experience they're not having at UCLA. Like,
I mean, their dad robbed them. Their dad made decisions because reality-based, and you didn't have to take the kid out of high school. And you don't have to make a decision absent, of all the other kids. Like, you are not going to Lithuania and going to the Lakers. I don't know why you're trying to sell this. And I'm afraid for the kids because the kids have no clue of what they're getting into. Their dad is writing a check that they got to cash, all right? Because, they got teammates, Jenna. One of their teammates is a sponsor, all right? Now, the team doesn't practice, but he's one of the sponsors of the team. He donates money, but he don't play in the game, but he just hangs around because he's one of the sponsors. 31 years old, a sponsor, not a basketball player. This is not the way, that you develop professional athletes. My mom, God bless her, raised 7 kids. 7 kids before she was 25. There's 4 boys. 2 of us, the 2 of us, we played 23 years of professional basketball and football. I got a son. Didn't have a great experience in college. He's playing his 4th year in the CFL abroad. 2 years has been CFL All-Star. So I'm very familiar as far as developing players and where they should go and how they should develop. Like, this is a huge mistake. They could have went to a Division II school, a D3 school. The other kid, LaMelo, he could have went to any type of high school, an academy, IMG in Florida. Like, he could have been playing against other all-star kids for the next 2 years.
But instead they
there were
take
so
them
many
out.
more options.
And they send them clearly across the world on a team where, forget getting the rest of your education, they don't even speak English. They don't speak the same language. They don't practice. They can't better their game. They can't better their life skills. They can't better their education. I don't see what becomes better from them going there.
What Occam's razor, the simplest solution is often the correct one. The only way this makes sense is the only reason you would do this. Pull your kid, one kid out of high school, one kid out of college, because keep in mind, LiAngelo was not kicked off the team.
No.
He was not kicked out of school. He was suspended indefinitely. The only reason this makes sense is because if they're NCAA athletes, they cannot be part of your brand mechanism. Now, I think the NCAA rules are absurd. It's one thing I agree with LeVar on. Like, of course, they should be able to do big baller stuff.
Okay, but
the
those
rules are the
right
rules
now.
as they are now.
Right.
And the only way they can be part of your marketing apparatus is if you remove them from that. And to remove them from that and have it, listen, if the story was, guess what? Real Madrid in Spain's league wants them, I'd be like, you know what, LeVar? You playing 4D chess, and I'm out here playing checkers. Good luck. God bless. That is awesome. But you're in Lithuania's D League.
And the plan was working. Get your kids into UCLA, let them go pro, and then really put this big baller brand together. Fine.
Jenna,
but it was all in place.
Jenna, Nick
he broke it.
Jenna, Nick and I were at Fox. We spent some time on UCLA's campus. Let me tell you, I looked up every picture I could of Lithuania this morning. and let me tell you something. He has played a trick on them boys.
Yeah.
Because to take take him out of UCLA, and to put him in this small town of 10,000?
Where 90% of people right now are probably looking on a map to even find where Lithuania is, I'm sure.
I mean, man, this is sad to see, because for me, forget parenting. I'm just talking about athletes. I'm into athletes and their potential being fulfilled. And that's what the kids, I believe, are being robbed of. They don't have the best chance to be successful because now they're not in the pipeline to be developed like they were playing AAU basketball, high school basketball, UCLA basketball, and then on somewhere else, hopefully.
Paul George crosses up Jeremy Lamb.
Oh, yeah.
Drilling the three.
Right. You think that was
I've seen a lot of that this year.
Guys
I can't blame it on the sneakers and everything.
Oh, yeah, I can. He's probably wearing the Stephs.
He probably had them knockoffs like you wear.
Whoa. Jenna, do not read this. Take it back.
The Bobos?
Take it back.
The skips.
That's great. That's great. Tell America I don't wear knockoff sneakers. Take it back.
He
Guys,
wears legitimate sneakers.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I've never seen you more insulted in your entire life.
The suits, everything
Russell
else.
Westbrook,
the
people.
attitude is a knockoff.
I don't. Sure, fine. Take all that. But my gear.
But my gear
is authentic.
My shoes are real.
Man.
Maybe it's a boy thing. I don't get the sneaker thing. Anyway, Russell Westbrook, America, take it
Got me
in.
out here perpetrating.
Gosh.
Russell, he needs more layups. My goodness, he's shooting the ball horrible.
Sticking with the Thunder. And those might have been
No
their
Thunder.
only highlights
Just
of the night.
rain and wind, Jenna.
They lost again.
No Thunder.
I feel like I've been
Just
saying that a
rain
lot.
and
This
wind.
time they lost to the Hornets. The Thunder now 12-14 on the season, 9th in the West. Paul George addressed the team's struggles after this game.
For the talent we have, obviously, this is not where we want to be. It's no panic mode, but we have to start playing better. It's getting to a point where, you know, we can't allow ourselves to be at this point. You know, we can say we're gonna figure it out. We can say all that, but at some point it's got to stop.
I mean, obviously, it does. I'm surprised they thought one star, fantastic. Add 2 more stars. How is it not foolproof? I put up 4 fingers, so that worked out well for me. My question to you, Nick, do you think the Thunder can, at this point, turn things around?
They can, but not without a major shakeup. Billy Donovan should be nervous.
What?
Yes. Listen, man, you cannot. Right now, Russell Westbrook is worse at everything.
They can't be looking to move off of Billy Donovan.
Oh, okay. Let me put it like this. So Russell Westbrook's worse at everything than he was last year. Paul George is worse at everything except three-point shooting
And
than
that's
he was
the
last
coach's
year.
fault.
Carmelo's worse at everything except rebounding than he was last year. Well, here's the thing, man. They can't. The roster is locked in. You cannot move these guys. Paul George can leave after this season. This is your moment. So if you're not going to be able to make a major trade, you got to figure something out. So I'm not saying you fire Billy Donovan. I'm saying if I'm Billy Donovan, I am at least apprehensive. But I do think there's something they can do. And that is my fellow Syracusan, Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo, who's on that banana boat with you? Close your eyes and think about it. There's Chris Paul, he's thriving, still one of the best players in the league. There's LeBron, he's thriving, still clearly the best player in the league. Who's the other guy on that banana boat? A guy who's had a better career than you. A guy who's won championships. And guess what? D-Wade was struggling beginning of the year when he was insistent on being a starter. He goes to the bench, swallows his pride a little bit. He has thrived. His team has thrived. If going to the bench in year 15 is not below Dwayne Wade, it's not like J.R. Smith is an all-star replacing him. Why is it not? Why is Carmelo Anthony above it?
I think that last year, Melo, in the last 2 years, Melo has been better than D-Wade from an athletic standpoint. Now, from an efficiency standpoint, I don't know that. But he's been a better basketball player. He has not looked like a sub. Dwayne Wade looked like a sub, even before he was a sub.
I agree.
He looked like that with the Bulls. So I don't think him going to the bench, it's a matter of them figuring out which roles they're going to play. And, like, the reason why I'm totally against the coach is because they're such a bad shooting team. That ain't the coach's fault. I mean, these guys are shooting career lows. All right, Westbrook is shooting a career low, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
George, shooting a career. That is not the coach's fault. Like, they can't make. This is a make-shot league, okay? We know they're not going to be great defensively. So if they don't make shots as jump shooters, That's their fault.
And when Cris says, I want to show the audience this before we change anything. When Cris says they're not shooting well, I want to show America this. There are 33 players in the league taking at least 15 shots a game. Russell Westbrook is 33rd in field goal percentage. Carmelo Anthony is 32nd in field goal percentage. Paul George is 30th in field goal percentage. There are only 33 guys shooting as much as these guys. They are 33rd, 32nd, and 30th. Only Donovan Mitchell is the only thing standing between them having the 3 least efficient shooters in the sport right now. All 3 of them. And that's why, by the way, CC, I do mention coaching. They're all simultaneously having their worst shooting years. Some of that's the offense. Some of that's the flow.
Look, Nick, I got to totally disagree with you, okay? The way they push the ball up the court. If you see most of their offense is not set plays. All right, most of them is doing exactly what they've done to be the type of great players that they've been. That's not coaching. They're not playing well. You can't blame Billy Donovan that Melo ain't shooting the ball well. And if he goes to be a 6th man, Billy Donovan can't make that call to make it. They don't. Who starts for him? There was a legitimate replacement in Cleveland who was going to start. That was JR.
Yeah.
Who starts for OKC?
They don't have amazing depth. I understand that. And you probably don't love the idea of Jeremy Grant going into the starting lineup.
Who is he?
He's another Syracuse guy. He's good energy, good defense. Go ahead, Jenna.
When we first started talking about
wrong
this
with the team. They got 2 Syracuse dudes on the one team.
You got to split them up. You can't put 2 balls together, 2 LeVar balls on.
Yes.
Never mind.
Got it. Go ahead.
Let's move on. Russell Westbrook on this team made this team work. The offense went through him. The energy went through him. The leadership went through him. So you just assume you add 2 more players that were sort of similar, maybe not as athletic, and this was just automatically going to work. The one thing we talked about this whole time was chemistry. We know they have the skill. Is chemistry going to be a factor? Well, guess what, guys? They're 26 games in, and it's not working. And every day I ask the 2 of you, at some point, when does it stop working?
You start being concerned.
But maybe what you said is true. Maybe it's time for Paul George to say, this is moving on, and maybe the team is better with just Russell Westbrook.
Well, here's the thing. But with just Russell, you had a defined ceiling. I will say one thing about Russell, one of my 5 favorite NBA players ever. He should be looking at what Victor Oladipo is doing in Indiana away from Russell, what he did last year. Victor Oladipo with Russell was a 15-point-per-game guy. In Indiana, he's an all-star, giving you 25, 5, and 5. That ain't great either.
I love Russell, too, but I don't love when he shoots 39%. I ain't got that kind of love.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.